Yes, good morning, those who are following us on UBC, this Pan-African Friday program that comes to you every Friday in the morning like now. We're looking at a number of issues that concern the African people, the African continent, and the African issues. We have a lot to discuss today, following up on what we discussed last week. We are continuing actually from where we stopped, and we thank you joining us this time. We know it's going to be a hectic program. It's going to be a lot of discussion. Sometimes at one point we also request and ask for your contribution so that we can look at the issues that affect us as the people on this continent of Africa and those outside of Africa, but looking at Africa as their home. In the studio, I'll be joined by the usual discussants, and they will be coming to you as and when their time comes. And we'll be looking, remember last week, for those who are with us, who are looking at the African stake in the global politics, who are looking at the contribution and the benefit, the importance of the visit of the African heads of state, at least those who were able to go to meet the two presidents of Ukraine and Russia, and were looking at was it necessary, was it important, was it urgent, and of course some people did send in their views, which we shall be discussing on this program. Before we go there, I will introduce the people who are with me in the studio today, beginning with the Pan-African, Ndugu Rugarama. And from Ndugu Rugarama, I'm joined by another Pan-African, Ndugu Irumba. We normally call him the spy. And then I'm joined with my sister, the only woman in the house, Rachel Takali, apparently the only woman among men. And we men now, as we
only
hear today.
Iron Lady among
Exactly.
men.
So we'll be looking at a number of issues, like I did say, continuing with what we had looked at of the contributions of the peace mission of the African heads of state who went to Moscow, not Moscow, definitely in Pittsburgh and also in Kiev to meet the two presidents, but also we'll look at a number of other issues that have occurred within the continent over the week from the last time we met. Of course, this week I know many people have had good things, others have had terrible things, but that is life. There are those who have lost their family members, and would definitely condole with you. But there are also those who have scaled a lot of successes and achievements, but also celebrate with you. Before we go further, normally we start our week with what we have looked at, especially what the things that have happened within this week, on this continent, even beyond, but with connotations or with ramifications that definitely affect the life on the continent. And to do that, I'll begin with Ndugu Rugarama to take us through his week briefly.
Good morning, dear comrades, once again. The week has been punctuated with quite a number of issues. We have had the president, Parliament enacted laws.
Parliament of Uganda you're talking about?
Oh yeah, sure. Parliament of Uganda enacted laws, and some have been assented to by the president, and some have been returned. Majority of them to do with taxation. We have had, of particular interest, there's the Islamic banking law, and the spirited fight that Honorable Chivumbi and Honorable Asuman Wasarwa, among others, other honorables have put up to defend that particular piece of legislation has been very lauded, especially in sections of the business community here on the Ugandan continent. I've also, of course, seen our Attorney General put up a spirited fight in that regard. And to me, of course, what stands out is how the Islamic banking law is going to operate amidst the other
commercial banks,
laws relating to other commercial banks which lend at interest. And we all know the interest rates of the commercial banks we have here in Uganda. So that really stood out for me. And we wait to see what will follow. Then
Okay.
at the same time, we have had, of course, the continuation of what is happening globally, the fight against the imperialistic hegemony and all that it has visited on the African continent in particular. We have had our own deputy speaker who has had a swipe at not the UN, the UN Security Council, if you like, and reminding, joining the forces that have in the past reminded the so-called permanent members of the Security Council that the way of doing what they have been doing for such a long time has been noted, and it is grossly unfair. Of course, he falls in the ranks of the late senior comrade Gabriel Robert Mugabe, who has had, who used to have serious altercations about the hypocrisy that the Western world, especially the so-called permanent UN security members, and their enclave, which they created to rule the rest of the world, which is actually also continuing. So to me, really, I think those two stand out. And
Okay.
maybe I will just state that I have also observed with a lot of concern the trend, the mode of debate on local and international issues is, I don't know whether we're taking a nozzle dive, but I remember during the impeachment proceedings of Bill Clinton, even those who were supporting or they wanted to get their president out of the trouble, the level of debate was, in my opinion, something to admire. But I'm greatly getting worried every other day by the level and nature of debate, which gets aggressive, abusive, and content is lost in a lot of useless stuff, if you will permit my diction.
Okay.
Useless in the sense that sometimes you don't have to insult each other. I've seen it I've heard radio, talk shows, you watch TV. You can disagree with respect, and I think we have said this here a number of times. So I call upon my colleagues, wherever they are, if you want to get into debate, do it decently. You will still be appreciated.
Depending on what you have between your ears, that also matters. Ndugu Irumba.
Okay, good morning, dear viewers. Maybe let me begin by introducing myself properly. My name is Andrew Irumba Katsabe Atenyi.
Those are not enough even. Add on the others.
I am the CEO of the Spy Uganda and Detective Uganda. I am also the founding speaker and chairman of the Pan-African Pyramid. This week, Comrade Mututa, I want to begin with our local news here. One is something came to my attention. The law that was assented to by the president, I think yesterday, the new Road Safety Act, Police and Road Safety Act that has been amended and assented to by the president. Now it becomes the law beginning tomorrow first. And what is the most, oppressing aspect in that new law now? That Mr. Mututa, when you commit a traffic offense, now the minimum you can pay is 2 million shillings. 2 million from 100,000.
People will not drive then.
I sometimes, Comrade Rugarama, you're a lawyer. I sometimes want to ask myself, these members of parliament, which planet do they live in?
$500.
When you are supporting such a law, are you looking at yourself only? Comrade Rugarama, you see these members of parliament.
Oh yeah.
They have drivers. Some of them even up to date, they are being paid less than 500,000. I want you to imagine that driver of yours has dropped you at home. He has now picked his personal car at night, going back home. And he commits, by the way, sometimes it's not even true that you have committed an offense. Sometimes, police here acts like God.
It is a fertile imagination.
Whatever they imagine that you have done it. Eh? Whatever they imagine, you have done it. And you can only fight it in court if you want. And for him, he will go. By the way, they have no problem sending you to court because this person on the road simply sends you, they process your paperwork at court and he remains on his job. He has nothing to lose. So that's why it is easy for them. So sometimes someone who stopped me, a police officer, I think he wanted me to talk to him in a certain language. I was so tired and I was going very far. I did not give him that positive approach that he wanted from me. And there you go, he gave me 200,000 worth of a penalty to pay. And what was he said, inconsiderate driving. I asked him, what have I done? Then he said, if you don't agree with me, you go to court. But I have issued the what? I had to pay and keep quiet.
Yeah.
So I wanted to imagine, there are these drivers of companies, these companies, factories and so on. A driver is paid less than 500,000. You imagine that he has committed an offense on the road. And sometimes also, these offenses are also on the car itself. You can be maybe missing a side mirror, you can be missing maybe the braking system. They put it on you in considering the use of road, 2 million.
Which is normal in a country where potholes are much more than the proper road.
So let me finish my point on this. I don't know where these people sit in the evening, and then in the morning, what they drink there when seated there. Then in the morning they come in the parliament. I don't know. I don't know which planet. And Mututa, one of the things I have seen the police and the government of Uganda and all people, driving so much, is that the cause of accident on Ugandan roads is as a result of inconsiderate driving. Bavugisa kimama in Uganda, that's what they say. Go to Dubai. Look at how many roads take, how many roads bring. Tell me where you will meet. Now show me how much money you spend here on a single lane and compare it with other roads. Go to Kenya. Don't even leave Dubai. Go to Kenya here. Look at the highways. How many lanes take, how many lanes bring back. This one is one lane, very narrow. The tarmac was stolen by 1 inch. Pothole, someone is driving, does not anticipate that there is a pothole. In trying to dodge the pothole, suddenly, there is a border man driving in the middle of the road. After the border man, there is a pedestrian. After the pedestrian, there is a cow. Now there's another car coming. So when they know, he considers the driving. Now pay 2 million. That is hopelessness.
I think those are some of the issues that
You construct away the roads.
are under consideration, and I'm sure the 2 million will not be there, and the car will have.
Don't take Irumba to Parliament. He will box people there.
The car will have.
Annoying.
By the time the car is there, cases will have taken.
Right now, comrade, you are here. Right now, let me give him an evidence. It is here. Right now, I was driving here. You see, what is this? Isn't this
You
sheep?
knocked a cow.
It's sheep.
This is sheep. Here, Mulago. You see that ring road of
Crossing
Mulago?
the road.
Ring road of Mulago. That connects to Kieman. These are sheep.
So where was the ship
Now,
going?
if I knock one here, you know,
No.
in consideration the driving, 2 million.
Now, on one thing,
don't
which for me,
understand.
by the way, I'm looking at, I was also
I
looking at
understand what they drink, what they eat.
the other time, the issue of, you know, some of the things, maybe we talk at them in passing, but I was also looking at the issue of, we didn't discuss, but I think we were looking at it, the issue of parenting, that for Africans, the way we procreate, it will be necessary for the leadership to look at that as an important issue. And then the cost of parenting should be at least considered. Now, if you are going to force the cost of parenting in terms of fees, in terms of how to look after this child, then people will be running away from that responsibility. Now, this has been happening in the other countries, and the consequences we now know. Now, last time when I saw that for children, I think for babies, bumpers, the cost has been increased. Rachel, it went up to how much? Which I found that not really being considerate, because I would that Pampers and since we are giving children free medication, especially immunization, and there should be part of the package that will allow parents, relieve the parents the cost of parenting. But if we're going to make the cost so much, we're going to be like Japan. Japan are now looking for children, they can't find them, because people cannot afford to have a child when you are supposed to work. For purposes of survival, one has to and I'm sure it also in China, where the one, now there are two child policy. So I think, like you are saying, also need to be considerate, looking at our population, looking at our future, looking at the welfare of our people and how much they can earn to be able to meet some of these costs. I think some considerations should be made. Rachel.
I think I'd like to focus on one of the more interesting developments as we talk. The Salary Remuneration Commission of Kenya, that is recommending a pay raise for the President, Vice President, and MPs. It should rise to about 14% over the next 2 years. And their argument is that they need to be cushioned from the rising cost of living.
President.
Yes, Vice President and MPs. And yet Kenyan MPs are some of the better paid ones on this continent.
The continent, exactly.
But I think what I find more astonishing is that Ndugu Ruto did not rush to distance himself from such a position.
Will he?
I'm still saying, for me, I'm astonished. Because one of the reasons he said he needed to be sitting in State House in Kenya was to, among other things, fight for the poor. That's what he said.
That's what he said,
He would
yes.
be very
Sure.
keen on seeing that
The hustler.
their position in life, the hustler, that their position in life is improved. I don't know if this factors into that improvement. Imagine that...
Maybe those are also part of the hustlers, because the president is a hustler, so he's with his hustlers.
But it is these contradictions. If you came for the poor,
You need to know that it is hustlers in State House.
I expect, I expect him to have come out by now to say, please, I am not part of such things. That is not, because after all, Mr. President, he's a very wealthy man. by any at least by any measure. And at least some estimates, I don't know if they're accurate, say he has at least hundreds of millions of dollars to his name, not Kenyan shillings. So I am wondering, why would this increment be of any significance to him?
The timing.
At the very least, symbolically, he should have rejected it outright as something that flies in the face of the ordinary Kenyan who is continually planning to go to the streets to protest the cost of living. So for me, that really brings into sharp focus the struggles we have with people, these bureaucrats. He was talking about what people eat and drink. What are you thinking to talk about increasing the salaries of the most entitled, the most well-connected, the most financially sound members of society? Why on earth would you propose such a thing? At this time, when the crunch is on in Kenya, among other places.
But
why?
That's also happening at the background, at the backdrop, when we have just, I think, not a long time ago, having demonstrations, and they still not completely.
Still along those lines.
Yes, because of the increasing the costs of social commodities. But at the same time, there's also, I think Kenya is also introducing the financial bill, which is also causing a lot of tension within
now
the...
this.
Yes. And then you are also coming in now that you need to increase your salaries like you are doing badly. But that also, like you said, comes in because the president, when he was coming on, he was representing these hustlers. That these hustlers, the kinamama mbogas of this world, that will be now accommodated in this new government. But these hustlers were left along the way a long time ago, when they realized that they could even, the kinamama mbogas could no longer, other than not even having the money to do your mbogas, you are going to pay. And there was the increasing the fuel, the food, now I think the timing could be suspect for that country. And the unfortunate is when the partisan politics come in, who supports who and who benefits from what. That is going to be unfortunate. And I don't know why, because President Ruto was a vice president, and must have learned from the PN from the other government.
His boss.
What was happening, and definitely the problems that they had to be able to get to where they got. But like you are saying, sometimes when you get to power, whether you forget so easily, or because the hustlers that he moved with are now the hustlers. The
Gachaguas.
Exactly.
No, but maybe just to mention something. You see, I think Sister Rachel has brought up something in her observation of the week that can actually qualify as a very big topic. I just want to make two statements. One, the wider debate is that the politics of patronage on the African continent mainly is still at play.
Yeah, sure.
That is one. Two, leadership, benevolent leadership is the thing of the past. It probably ended with the likes of Osejefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was being resurrected by Dr. Pombe Magufuli, and we know what happened. I rest my case.
He died of COVID.
But I think also, Ndugu Mututa, one of the more interesting developments, this is further afield, but still, the serious troubles that Paris is facing at this time. I think what I find more interesting, even as Honorable Tayebwa and the group that traveled with him for the AU-EU Pacific States meeting in Brussels, they were trying very much to push the line that the hypocritical nature of global politics is not just untenable, but it really is not something that anybody should be comfortable with going forward. I was thinking, as they advanced the argument, that they took all sorts of time and energy to castigate the Parliament of Uganda and so on. And until the United States, among others, began threats, along with EU and some other funny international actors, I have not heard America went so far, they rose head and shoulders above the other actors and said, look, please, as American citizens, do not consider going to that country if you can. You may actually fall into people who cut you to pieces, as if there is such a record anywhere. But I have not heard any of those voices saying, please, Americans, do not go to Paris. It is on fire. It is unsafe. You can see the double standards. Why is it that when Kenya or Uganda legislates certain things, it is suddenly unsafe, it is suddenly barbaric, and really not a place fit for modern actors? But Paris is safe. I have not had any European country issue a travel ban or warning saying, please, those people are setting cars on fire, those people are burning buildings, or that the police officers are racist. And in fact, if you're an American citizen and of color, you may actually be mistaken and shot dead. These things, if I do something in self-interest, and the following day, the whole European Parliament is at war with my country, why isn't the EU at war with the racist officers in Paris and racist officers in America and other expressions of governance excesses? Is it because they are technically of your extraction? These are questions we must examine.
Yeah, sometimes we have been discussing it here, and when we say that the no dog sometimes also now needs to wake up. Because if you issue a travel alert, which is normal to your citizens not traveling in a particular country which you think is not safe for them, tell me, how safe is America today?
No, has never been safe.
Where
Don't say today.
People shoot, people who go to shop are shot. People
Schools.
go to have a drink are shot. People who go to have a party, a picnic, they are shot.
In
people
school.
who go to school, they are shot.
Children.
People who are in church, they are shot. People who are neighbors are shooting. Children are shooting adults. They are shooting short people. They are shooting tall people without rationale. The police officers are on fire. They are shooting the citizens. How come there is no travel alert from Europe concerning America? And vice versa.
My take on that, and this we have discussed before here, but I will not get tired of reminding our audience that media, so-called major media houses, globally speaking, are nothing but extensions of the imperialistic hegemony. Sure. They are driving that agenda. Because, look at it this way. You want to tell me, for instance, that the America we have always known, the CNN, the BBC, the Fox News, do not know that what is happening in their jurisdiction is actually out of this world. You think they don't know that, but they are not going to report that. They are selectively getting information to package it and give it to the audience the way they feel they should give it to them, so that the audience can be reoriented into thinking
they're superior
about the. So in the same way, I will tell you that the major media houses, which unfortunately appear to be the main sources of information to our majority of the people, are designed to influence perception.
It is true that in societies and communities, black communities in America, there is increasing and high crime rate. And it is also true that in those communities, the life is not as interesting. But it's also true that these black communities are forced to be what they are because of the subjection, the way they are treated, either through education, even the healthcare system.
Structure.
Even, exactly.
So you just go to Malcolm X. Go to the late Malcolm X's speeches. Now, currently, go to the two Pan-Africanists as we have them. Minister Louis Farrakhan, look at what he says about the structure, the American structure, in as far as the so-called minority. They say blacks are minority. I don't know when they became minority. I think we are the biggest. Then you look at Dr. Umar Johnson and what he talks about the structure, the American structure, in as far as governance is concerned, and how that impacts.
And Nduguru Garama, I'm sorry we're dwelling much on this, but it also concerns most of the Africans. Anyway, we have talked about this thing. So why can't also the African Union issue an alert to the Africans from traveling to some of these countries?
Even if it doesn't amount to,
even it doesn't
it may
matter
not
anyway.
amount to much when
like
you don't go deep, but at least it will be a statement. You remember one time when South Africa refused the people from Europe and America to come to South Africa?
Exactly.
You see, it may not necessarily amount to much in the immediate, but they said
it's a statement.
And they made sure. They said, we don't want to embarrass you. Make sure in this period you don't appear here, because we shall turn you back immediately.
Because of COVID, right?
Yeah, because they were carrying diseases. So if Africa says, we issue an alert to the Africans that you travel to America, you travel to this country, you travel this country at your own risk. But which is also true, because we have seen these blacks being harassed, being killed, and no one seems to bother. So I think it is also something that I can think about. Do it even if no one appreciates, like the lizard that fell from the tree. Now, last time we were talking about the heads of the presidents who went to Ukraine and Russia.
So they're the lizards.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it made a lot of importance or not, but at least the statement is made. So I think we can sanction some of these people also, say, don't come. Now that they are issuing the alert, please don't go to Uganda. Potatoes are going to rot.
Let me tell you, Comrade Mututa and our dear audience, one thing is for sure. In the immediate, we may not make a lot of impact, but truth be told, when, without consulting the heads of states on the African continent, at the African Union, our dear chairperson of the African Union admitted Israel as an observer state. When the heads of states converged later, and these observers were in the house, they demanded that these people get ejected, and they were ejected. That may not necessarily mean that we are actually impacting as we would want to on the global affairs of Israel. No. Israel continues to establish embassies. It continues to create a Mecca out of Jerusalem. It continues with the illegal settlements. CNN, of course, and the BBC will say nothing or not much about them. You know, but at the end of the day, that ejecting of the observers from Israel was a statement made by the African Union. They can't be allowed to sit there.
So, in other words, I think it is the issue we focus out, and then you have this good parliament of ours. You can't say yours because we are all members to it. They are Pan-African Parliament. The last time I heard about it, you was about what? Now, I think we as Africans are not also putting to use the infrastructure that we have, even the little that we have. We may not be using it very well, because then some of these things could be well coordinated, collaborated, and articulated at some level. Now, you from the parliament, when the members of parliament from Uganda and other African countries were raising issues, you could see that some of the Africans seem to be out of reach with reality. But I think the most important thing is that we as Africans as the people of this continent, we need to have a focus. We need to look at issues that bring us together. We can also consider issues that not necessarily bring us together, but they affect us as the people of Africa. So I think as we go, the few questions that people asked last time, and which also in line with this, one of them was like, so what would happen if wheat and gas, we don't get gas, maybe was talking about petroleum products, were coming to Africa? Would it have necessitated the African leaders to go to Russia and Ukraine?
Well, they say that is one of the major reasons they went. That's what they claim. No, actually, that was not their claim. That was the claim of some of the actors in Ukraine in particular, who say it was very much about stomach, diplomacy. They believed they were safeguarding the interests of their stomachs over and above any other thing that was on their agenda. So it's not the first time. Macky Sall, at the height of when the invasion was at the height of its impact, Macky Sall, who was the AU chairperson at the time, made the journey to actually make the case that Africans were disproportionately disadvantaged by restrictions on exportation of grain from that part of the world. So would they do it? Yes. Have they done it? Yes.
Okay. Nuguru Garama, what is your take on that?
You see, the last time I told you that
the war should
from
continue.
the Pan-African point of view,
Yeah.
I would make a very radical statement. I would say, actually, let that confusion continue. Let us be blocked from accessing any rice. Need be, let some people who were importing and relying on the rice in Ukraine and Russia, assuming the treatment I hear was meted out on the African leaders by Zelensky is actually true. Of course, I know it will be at the cost of starvation and death, unfortunate as that sounds, given that Africa has got well over 65% of her land arable and fresh waters, fertile soils. You know, it just does not make sense. But you see, at the same time, I do not agree for one entirely, that is, that actually the African leaders went to Russia and Ukraine
Looking for food.
to look for food. I don't agree that that was the reason entirely. But of course, our media is very sensational. And they will always where Irumba comes from. There are very few Irumbas who are going to give it a Pan-African touch. The rest will just be running it down. But I'm also not, I'm alive to the fact that we have got some absurd situations and some absurd leaders from our continent who actually will go to such places and all they have to do is to beg for that kind of food. But if, for instance, in the immediate, the argument was that let's have fuel and the other products associated with the fuel be given a preference to come through, because that impacts on transport. You see, when transport is high, the rest of the other commodities are also going to be high. That has been tested all over, we know for a fact.
Okay.
Now, if that was one of the reasons as to why they went there, and indeed we can experience the fuel, the price, pump price, come down. Because I didn't know it would come, you remember, the pump price, where it had gone, it was terrible. You know, it has come down. And if that was, if that can be, don't ask me, I know Mtuta is going to ask me. But
Exactly.
you see, Africa, Mozambique, we are producing. Libya, we are producing. Uganda, I don't know whether we started or not. Nigeria, there are more than 7 countries on the African
Angola.
continent. Yeah, thank you very
Even
much.
South Africa.
You see, more than 7 countries on the African continent
Algeria.
whose combined percentage in terms of fuel production is sufficient to provide fuel for the entire African
For the
continent,
next 20
and
years.
we supply
Yes.
others. You see?
Yes.
Don't take me there, because this is going to be a whole new topic now. We're going to say, why are you not doing the correct thing? Yes, we are not doing it. Venezuela, which has got the best quality of fuel, or oil if you like, up to now, has got her population starving. Why? Simply because the multinationals that were operating in Venezuela were all donated by America. When Maduro changed the game and he said, no, I'm now going to nationalize and I'm going to bring in other competitors from China and Russia who are going to give me a better deal for the benefit of my people.
Actually,
he became a dictator. They brought a man who had lost elections. He was declared president. When
The previous one was killed.
Yeah, when Cuba tried to say, no, you're not going to overthrow this government, Pompeo and Trump, they enhanced economic sanctions. The double standards you are talking about, which my brother Taiwo was talking about, is at play.
Now that is the point, because you know that this issue, and you know, we also have cartels now in Africa that take position when they know we are having some of these problems, and they'll easily come in. And then last time she was talking about the Frenchman who was brokered the
businessman,
so-called peace broker. Now you realize that you definitely don't need grain from Russia or from Ukraine. That is true. You even don't need their petroleum to be able to survive. That's true. The problem has been on the African continent, that we have failed to focus our energies. We do a lot of destroying ourselves more than putting these energies together for a common good. And that's where we are, because imagine a country relying on all the grain from Ukraine. Now when to stop, no wonder they can laugh at you, say, because they know that if it were not of the food, maybe these people would not have taken. One was telling them, your things are misguided. You need to be lectured on what you should have. So that means the ridicule with which our leaders get when they leave these countries to go out there, the begging, which they do definitely, they can't stop doing that because they want certain things to be done back at home. But the truth is that, and if he'd said it, I don't think he said it, but it is alleged that Zelensky was saying, you are saying you don't have food and you don't have, your economies are doing badly in Africa, but each of you has flown in with a private jet and over 100 people. So why can't you use that money to develop your countries?
I don't think he said it. And
I'm sure he did.
Yorumba here will comment on it. I know he's into journalism. But this is my observation. One, these African leaders were coming from different countries. How did you expect them to connect? The distance, for instance, between
South Africa.
Let's just take Entebbe, Oliver Tambo is about 4 hours.
Yeah.
4 hours flight.
Mm-hmm.
Dakar, Entebbe is about 8 hours. That's the same time with the Entebbe Heathrow.
Yeah.
You see? 7, 8, I think, around there. Now, so it would be
the connectivity.
No, even if you do straight, by the way, because Entebbe, Heathrow, where do they stop? Straight, 8 hours.
Do you
Dakar,
now need also 100 people in that plane?
No, maybe 100 people. I was coming to that. But were they 100? I doubt.
Yeah,
I
because
didn't say 100.
South Africa took about 120, those who
Maybe they were going to do
And they were kept at the airport.
who are withheld in Poland.
What was that for? Maybe that is another argument. I agree there, Roger. I don't think that was necessary.
They want to save
if
the
they did, they are
opportunities.
100. But the point I'm making is, even if we say, okay, fine, in terms of the presidents going with their presidential jets, I find no problem there. Surely. Then, but what is of great importance here is that His Excellency Zelensky can also not claim high-level ground. Why? If he was visionary, if he was economic, he would not have allowed his country to go to ruins. he knows, or he ought to know, that the kind of war he's fighting is not his own war. But he has allowed poor sense of judgment to prevail over him, to allow the hegemonic America and her cousins, the rest of the NATO members, to use Ukraine as a battlefield, and it is not, she's not going to heal for in the near future, simply because of that poor judgment. He is therefore in no moral position to judge other people. Actually, kudos to the African leaders, because for the very first time, we seem to be taking peace to the rest of the world, which never had peace in the first place.
And before we go for a break, the other one was saying, this one I think was from Kinshasa, was saying that, so when it was writing in Kiswahili, but meaning that when will the African leaders also come to Congo and also go to Sudan for the same mission of peace?
They are there.
No. We're talking about the determined, focused, persistent.
That's when he talked about the body and the soul.
That is the one he's waiting for. He's not waiting for symbolic. No. So we're still praying for the same intervention. We don't know when. We are still praying.
That's a very important question. And last time when Sister Rachel was talking about that, and she was very passionate about body and soul, I probably we didn't get her then. But the truth of the matter is that although we have got so many examples in the past where we have had body and soul, really, on the African continent, that I can say without hesitation and cite a number of examples.
And those ones have been resolved, such conflicts.
Yes, but now the current situation is in an endeavor to have the body and soul, to have the homegrown solutions for African problems. There is need, since we have got a common enemy, the imperialistic hegemonic West is everywhere, although he moves in very subterranean ways. There is need to have inter alia, an ideological revolution which must be backed up by a standing army, African Union standing army, whereby there is one voice, and without any hesitation, if there is trouble in the Gambia, to say, wait a minute, we have made an assessment of what is happening in Gambia, and we think this is not going to work. Therefore, we send in the army.
Okay, and many other standing forces within Africa to be able to fight our wars, but also to make life better on this continent. When we come back from the break, we're going to look at issues again of African nature, but this time more focused on the increasing interference of the other parts of the world in the African affairs. Please don't go away. We shall be back shortly after this break. Thank you.
From Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial star 100 star 10 hash to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial star 100 star 10 hash. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial star 100 star 10 hash to get started.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
Uganda is rich in natural resources and hard-working people. But to turn these resources into real progress and development, we need to invest in our infrastructure, education, and healthcare. That's where taxes come in. When we pay our taxes, we are investing in our country's future. We are supporting the schools that educate our children, the hospitals that care for our families, and the roads and bridges that connect our communities. And when businesses pay their taxes, they are contributing to the growth and development of Uganda's economy. They are helping to build a stronger, more prosperous nation for us all. So when you pay your taxes, you are investing in the future of Uganda and supporting the progress and development of our nation. Uganda is because of you.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and get a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
This isn't just a girl. She is the future. This is a teacher, a doctor, a community leader, our future president.
This is our family's pride.
This is my friend.
This is the future of our nation.
She is the future of Uganda, and the policies I enact today will protect her from teenage pregnancy.
She is the hope of our community, and I will talk to others about how we must protect her.
She is our family's pride, and I will protect her from child marriage and talk to her about the dangers of teenage pregnancy. We each have a role to play in empowering our teenage girls to protect them from child marriage and pregnancy, because when we empower them, we empower our nation. Protect the girl, save the nation.
Their support meant so much to me. I stayed focused and was protected from child marriage and teenage pregnancy. I will support other girls against child marriage and teenage pregnancy.
Take action. Report any case of defilement or child marriage to the police or call Sauti 116. Road traffic crashes is one of the leading causes of death among young people aged 5 and 29 years. In 2022, Uganda registered 21,473 crashes, out of which 4,534 people died and 15,227 seriously injured. 22 people die every 100 crashes, and on average, we lose 12 people daily. Legacy Road Safety Initiative, in partnership with KCCA, Ministry of Works and Transport, Ministry of Health, Uganda Police Force, Red Cross, Rosaku, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, have organized the second Road Safety Marathon for the crash victims to help create awareness, build cohesion among stakeholders, train first responders at black spots, and support a health facility. The marathon will take place on the 23rd of July 2023, starting at 7 a.m. from Nakasero Primary School grounds. Book your kits at 25,000 from Legacy Road Safety Initiative offices located at Old Kampala Chicken House, 2nd floor, room 18, or 8th Street, Safeway, Rightway offices, Total Energies, Ovino Mall, Boda Boda Industry Uganda, or visit www.lrs-initiative.org to register. Call 0752 605 479 or 0776 598 817 or 0414 698 675. Proudly powered by Daxi Driving School and Wava Water. Run to save a limb.
Yeah, welcome back from that break. Kampala, it is already drizzling, and I'm sure people who are out in the streets are feeling it. For us in the studio, we can feel it. It means the rain out there is working its way, and sometimes Kampala can be tricky when it rains. But we are looking at issues of Africa, and we have been discussing the role that Africa has in global politics. Are we influencing any positions in global politics, or we are being influenced by global politics? Now, while that is happening, the most important thing is that Africa also has its own issues in the backyard, and we need to look at ourselves first, then we can look at the rest of the world. But that does not stop us from helping others who we think are definitely in need of the peace. Like Nduguru Garama said, as we were going off the set, that it was good if for no another reason than having the peace taken to where it doesn't exist. And I'm sure Africa may be having some of these conflicts, but I think on the overall we are still safe and secure. Once the conflicts are done, I think Africa will be able to ease itself, settle and develop. But there are a number of issues that must be handled. Of course, many people had written a lot of things, but because of time, we may not be going into that. But we also take this time to look at this issue of the conflict, of course, the continuing conflict in this part of Europe. If it were Africa, I think we would have had a lot of backwardness, a lot of dictatorship, a lot of corruption. But I think all of these things are also playing in the backyard in Europe. We're talking about this so that the African people shouldn't give up, to look like, well, we have given up, we are done and we are finished. We are not yet done, because what we thought would not happen in Europe, it is happening in Europe. Now, last week, within the week, I think, you saw what happened with the Wagner group, the Russian team. You would expect that by that time, this was a force that was tamed. But of course, I think they had started developing these parallels when the army of Russia and the Wagner group began having issues. And this is the same scenario that is now playing out in Sudan, where we saw the two commanders not agreeing, and this other hired force also had to come in. So are we looking at, one wouldn't fault us to say, well, that's what would you expect from Africa, but we have seen this happen in Europe. Do you think that, of course, a lot of statements, a lot of issues have come up now trying to put government of Russia and the Wagner group in line, and it's the same thing that had been suggested actually in Sudan, when they said the rapid response force should now be integrated in the government, in the army ranks of Sudan, and that's where the problem was started. But you also realize that this group has also done a lot of things, a lot of, I would say, good things for the government of Russia, because you have seen them fight wars. Their Wagner group is now in Central African Republic in Africa, they are in Mali, they are in Venezuela, they are in which other countries? A number of, Libya. They are in all these countries where there are minerals, and which means they are not there as an NGO or a church. Of course, even churches these days have changed, but they are there to make money for the home governments. So what do we see happening here as a future for these countries? I think we can also look at this before we move. Rachel.
I think one of the more interesting things concerning this Wagner operation was the belated acknowledgement of Mr. Putin and his government.
Yeah.
That indeed this is their outfit. through and through. He went on to say that since the invasion of Ukraine, the Russian government has pumped $1 billion, no less, into Wagner directly, in the way of welfare, and I think other related equipment and so on. For many, many years, because we know Wagner as we know it today, first made its incursion, if you will, onto the African mainland in about 2017, I think the first record. At that time, it was not very clear what they were doing here. Russia was at pains to pretend that these were people who were actually out to earn a living, having served in various armed outfits over the years, that there were mercenaries who really had no direct connection to the Russian state. So this of itself is the first admission, as far as I know, in recent years, that Russia is as active in imperialistic exertions as are their distant cousins, Europe and America. The Wagner Group, by this admission, is an outfit that seeks to entrench Russian influence, power, ideology, and so on. They come as people who, in many cases, are really supporting failing states. That is why one of the earlier places that we know of them was Libya and its recent troubles. They were quick to come to the aid of the Central African Republic back in 2018 when there were political troubles there. They were also quick to come to the intervention of places like Mozambique. But wherever they have gone, there has been unrest, and they have come just like their second and third cousins in Europe and America, come to the fore, pretending they have our best interests at heart. But as the years have gone by, Wagner has been exposed as an old colonial power that Russia is, in that they strategically have their footprint in places where there's gold and diamonds and oil.
Yes.
They don't go in places where there's no mineral wealth on record. So by that, many times when we are talking about the imperialist, we forget some of them. But I'm here to remind us that Russia is also imperialistic.
Sure.
The Wagner Group, and this is also on record, when the Prime Minister, no, the Foreign Minister, came, Sergei Lavrov, he came on record just this Monday and said, look, Wagner's not moving 1 inch out of Africa. We have had our challenges, but no, they are pressing forward with their mandate. So Russia is also at a place where they're no longer pretending that they really have African interests at heart. They also want the minerals just like their cousins.
The Americans want it.
They also want the power just like their cousins. They want the influence just like their cousins. They want to impose their worldview just like their cousins. The sooner we Africans realize that no one has our interests but ourselves, the journey to true emancipation will have begun. Not the Chinese, not the Turkish, not the Indians, not whomever, not even the Arabs. Everyone is in this thing for himself and God for us all. So this thing of thinking that when Wagner comes to prop you up today, your regime that is failing, it is by extension for the good of your country. It was one of the worst lies being perpetuated today.
Exactly. And you realize that the Wagner groups are operating in countries that they're failing states or failed states. But these states must also have a lot of resources, like you put it. Now, you also have to step back and look at the scenario. Why is it that these states that are so rich in minerals are failing? Is it not only minerals, but other resources? are the ones that we are looking at as at failed states. Talk of any of those, Mali, talk of Venezuela, talk of all the Libya,
DRC.
because DRC, all these countries are countries with a lot of resources.
I think
which means that the person who is, there is a hand that is failing the administration in those countries, but the same hand that is pushing for some of these groups, because we are talking about only one Wagner group now, but I think we have more than 10 mercenary groups coming from Europe and Americas that are operating in Africa.
But also, Mr. Mututa, I think along those very same lines, it's very important to note that the founder, one of the founders of Wagner, the very, at this point, depending on where you're coming from,
yes.
Maybe, I think I could call him notorious. But he is a businessman at the core. So Wagner is a paramilitary or a proxy that is not just military, it is also a business arm of the Russian state. That is why where they are, they also deal in oil and in gold and all those other precious things to remit whatever it is they get to the Russian state. It is not by accident that Mr. Putin would say, look, we sunk in $1 billion. No one sinks $1 billion where $1 billion cannot be made.
Exactly.
So that is even the reason why, among other things, in my view, why this man, Prigozhin, was given an amnesty, if you will. He has been much more valuable to the Russian state than you realize.
Will you be surprised to realize that when Russia sunk in $1 billion dollars, Americans have shared in that money, supplying arms to Wagner?
Whatever it is, as long as it works for them. Because as we know, every military manufacturer of consequence has things in which they are better than the other.
Ndugu Irumba.
I think Wagner, like she clearly puts it, came in two things. One is to entrench Russia's interests, not just in Russia, but beyond Russia. And that's why, by the way, the other issue, Madam, you need to realize is that this gentleman is actually a very, very close ally to Putin as a person, and
invaluable, really.
Invaluable, and
from a convictee.
And I've been reading some of the things that he does under his Wagner are not allowed in Russia, and no any other organization can do them. You get the point?
Illegal in every way.
Yeah. Some of the things that he goes away with, any other person you do it in Russia, you'll be in for it. But also not just in Russia, but even outside Russia. America, I've seen them trying to say we are ICC, indicting him. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
ICC.
Indicting who?
Yeah.
ICC. Putin?
No,
Prigozhin.
The Lithuanians called him a serial killer.
They have issued a document, I think last week, trying to say we are going to indict him.
An organization they don't belong to?
I think the ICC has also become, like last Friday you were saying, you were saying that the African leaders simply needed to appear.
Yes, it's me who said,
yeah. So even ICC is trying to find relevance in every situation now to appear. Even I have seen last week they said they are going to start trying to coin in absentia. ICC. They are going to start trying to coin in absentia. When you convict him, are you going to detain a court?
Whenever he resurfaces, it doesn't matter when, then he will start serving his punishment.
So what about the rule of natural justice that you must hear from me? So anyway, I think there is a lot of double standards in the world. What they call the first world, you see, they call Africa third world, isn't it? So the first world sets rules to dominate the third world. And the unfortunate thing is that the third world also, you know,
it's waiting for domination.
They accept with a lot of humility.
Joy.
With a lot of humility. Yes. Yeah. When it comes to them, it's different. That's why when the former presidents of America, Bush, Obama, and so on, when they killed leaders of other countries, these laws are there in the books. Nobody has read about it. Right now, America is saying we want Putin, we want so and so. What about you in America? Now come here down, Comrade Mututa. Sometime back, America issued the warnings that they did it when a princess of UK was coming to visit a school in Mukono. Do you remember? They issued the warning that there's going to be killings, rebel attacks in Uganda, and the school was banned. And then America said, "Didn't we tell you?"
But even before the ADR bombings.
I'm coming. Recently here, the bombing at Parliament and at the Uganda Road, America has issued warnings. Are you getting me? They said there is going to be an attack. It happened. The other week, America issued warnings that there is going to be an attack. They don't tell you specifics. They don't want to be caught off guard. They said there was going to be an attack in Uganda. The school was what? Attacked. Now, this police here, the Ugandan police, a boy out of excitement on TikTok says, "I am one of them." He is now under detention. Why don't you begin with America? Why do you say I'm going to be attacked and I'm attacked and they leave? By the way, America has told us, where did you get that information? Somebody is going to attack us and he attacks us. We want to know who is that. But because you find a small boy on TikTok, you want to show that you are working and your laws are working, you arrest that one. But even from your own common sense, you know that this boy is just excited. But America that has the capacity to attack a country, they have said so. They are quiet. The Ugandan government is quiet. We want to ask the American embassy, who is attacking us? That you get this pro-information, even evacuate your people, because no American has ever died in these all, circumstances they're talking about. No, they won theirs. Then they leave the rest of us.
I'm told even...
Then when that happens, they say, our security operative, CIA, we are working very well. And Uganda and Africa are accepting the ban.
I'm told that
kind of nonsensical living.
That the Americans didn't die even in the earthquake.
Why doesn't the police go to interrogate this embassy, American embassy? Where did you get that information that we're going to be attacked and we were attacked?
So you think
because there is such a thing as preventive arrest.
Yes.
So you can now get arrested.
Preventive.
Yeah, begin with these people who talked about it and it happened. But you are going for small boys. Like a boy excited on social media. That one, hey, this one is really, you even see that he cannot kill a rat. But the American can kill the entire country, you are quiet.
Which law do we apply to arrest these Americans?
Well, to start with, there is such a thing as intelligence information sharing.
Yes.
Now, intelligence information sharing apparently is something that is not supposed to be meeting the media attention. Now, when America comes up and warns her citizens in different countries that there is going to be an attack, I don't think that they are sharing information with the intelligence organs of that particular country. That is absurd. History has shown us, for instance, that there are rebel activities, if you want to call them that, in around Cuba. Cuba has always nipped them in the bud, and it always provides very disturbing intelligence information to the American government. That we have gotten a section of Americans collaborating with a few dissidents in Cuba, and they were planning this. Then they relayed the same information to Pentagon. Now, of course, that does not please the authorities in America, but that has always happened. In the same way, the Venezuelan government, for instance, was getting members who were planning to destabilize and also put the infiltrate the Venezuelan army. And they would get that information and relay it back and say, this is what we have gathered. It is unfortunate. Please make sure kilometers. And then all of a sudden, the Virgin Mary appeared to them and convinced them through the Belarus president to abort the plan. Serious analysis, and my conclusion at this moment is that this Wagner, in cahoots with their leader, could have tricked, most likely could have tricked, characteristic of the American establishment. They may have wanted to give money. They could have is reduced by a certain percentage, and it never happened. In other words, in Putin and Wagner, a worked out plan.
But how many people have died in the name of protection?
Us being slow. If they want A, B, C, D to finish the job, for them they're saying, no, I think let's...
Just like what happens when they're in Africa.
Exactly.
The weapons they want, they get.
Yes. So here things move faster, but in Europe things are not moving faster. I guess at some point, much as Russians are known for their ruthlessness,
You look at the arguments at the departure, so-called physical departure of the French from these colonial colonies. There was pact for continuation of colonialism, which was signed, save for just 2 countries which didn't sign. But I want to assure you that to cooperate with DRC and give them a better deal of how to flush out some of these rebel outfits within and stabilize the country.
They can do so mainly, especially where there are mines. They can easily do that. Because
but who would want to go to a dry land?
Of course, and so that's why.
During colonialism, countries here were changing colonies. They say, no, you trade. I give you this, you will give me the other. And all they were doing was just to look at where can I benefit from.
So, Ndugu Irumba, where is Africa?
By the West.
The blueprint.
A blueprint. You have put it better. I call it a template.